Hello, everyone. This is Luke again, and welcome back to the Life Story series, the series where I tell you stories all about my life, and they are 100% true. So, for the November edition, I want to go a little bit more personal, in depth, because this one kind of has some indirect correlation to Ninjago. But this is the story of when I act. Okay, before I actually get into the story, sorry. Let me give you some insight. Um, um, just a week before, a week before, uh, Ninjago actually aired on TV. So the irony in this is incredible. I actually first started martial arts, doing Taekwondo. Um, at a place called Martial Arts World. You can look it up. Most of the locations are in Virginia anyway, are in my home state anyway. So, anyways, I studied there and I had a good instructor there, and I worked on there for years. I had 1 to 2 classes a week, mostly because of school and because of the distance between from one location to another location. It was kind of far away. Um, and I rose upon the ranks, gaining a lot of respect from fellow pupils of mine, and and when I first started and when I first saw Ninjago, I made that connection. And you know what I promised to myself? That I was going to continue doing it until the show ends. Because once the show ends, what the hell would be the point? But eventually, after a while, the stress started to pick up. I was not quite as loose as I was back then. I wasn't, quite as fit. And honestly, it made me kind of feel miserable. But it wasn't to the point where I was thinking, yeah, you know what? I'm just not interested in this anymore. But basically, during that time, I actually, tested for a black belt, which, I ended up becoming a first degree black belt. And I was training to, progress to advance. And then, all of a sudden, I broke down. I really legitimately broke down, essentially. If you remember a video um ages ago talking about why 2018 was the worst year of my life, you should this was around that time. Basically, the stresses of school combining with martial arts was just too much for me. And I knew I couldn't just quit school. I mean, if I had a choice between or school, if I had to give up one of those, I would have said school, but I couldn't because you technically can't do that. So I had no choice but to give up martial arts for good, for the sake of my mental health. So in a way, I broke my own promise, and it made me feel kind of upset. But going back to those times, I did test for a black belt, which I'm actually gonna talk. This is what the main story part is about now. Is actually how I got it. So it went through a couple of phases. I had a deputy black belt, which was half of it was red, half of it was black, and it symbolizes that you're very close to being black belt, but you need a little bit more training in order to achieve that black belt. Um, you have to go through multiple tests, and you have to pass each one in order to get. So the first one was if you had the red on top, the black on bottom, essentially. And once you completed that test, you were essentially a black belt. You just haven't been given the uniform or the belt yet. So what they do is they flip the over where it's the black half on top, the red half on bottom. So you were essentially a black belt, and I was learning some black belt curriculum. And basically, once to actually get my first degree black belt, I had to attend a huge one all the way in like somewhere in my state. It was like, I'm not gonna explain where, but it was somewhere. I know where it is. It's just I don't like revealing personal information. Even though I kind of sort of already did. But basically, um, what so there were multiple black belt tests because there's multiple degrees of black belt because he didn't via stripes or anymore with the lowered colored belts, but rather the degrees, like first degree, second degree, third degree. Um, I think for second degree, I think if I remember, I saw you basically had to stand on broken glass and punch a candle's flame out without getting burned. You would just have to go like that, basically. That was for the second degree, I'm pretty sure. But for me, it was a first degree. It was supposed to be a knife hand strike through concrete, and I'm like, and my mom was like, the hell? How is my hand gonna strike through concrete unless I attack it in a very specific way? But then I looked all the way to the left, and I was thinking, oh, they're just doing boards. They just straight up chop through the board. Well, it's actually two boards, believe it or not. And you know what? I was like, whoops. And for some reason, the first board didn't break, but the second one did. It's like it broke under it, which I don't understand. I don't know how, when you put one board on top of the other, the second one breaks, but the first one has stayed level. So I had to do it twice, but I eventually got it. It was pretty easy, especially considering it wasn't real wood. It was one of those easy breakable boards where you could just, if you put enough momentum in it, it'll break. And that was it. That was the first part. And then a while later, I actually had to get up in a suit, and it's still the only time that I've ever actually worn a suit, and worn it to the ceremony where basically you had to drink some tea, sip some tea. I think it's one sip, and you had to they had to have your knuckle printed, like these two knuckles right here. I think they called them their fighting knuckles or something. And so I punched them down like this, and boom. And that was basically it. Because I remember, and I was wearing like a blue suit. I was wearing like blue, and I remember they actually read the accomplishments of like let's say, if you achieve something in school, like I had certain accomplishments in school. I could do that for a future life stories if I renewed this series for season or series 3, whatever. I would have to talk to you guys. Hopefully, you guys are interested in this series enough to where you actually want to see more. Because I'm only doing one a month. Okay? But that's really it. That's where those phases of black belt testing are. So there were essentially 3 phases. The first phase was the one where they switched the belt over to black on top of red. The second one was to start black belt testing phase 1 and then black belt testing phase 2, essentially. But there were 3 phases in all. So technically it should be phase 3, but I call it phase 2 because it's a completely different ceremony and whatnot. But anyways, that's my story for how I tested for my black belt and how basically the whole Ninjago and my martial arts connection worked. Hopefully you guys like this little story. It's a little bit longer than some of the other ones, but this one had more details associated with it. But anyways, I hope you guys like this video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel by clicking on the red subscribe button, and click on the notification bell to receive every video that I will upload. And I'll see all you folks in the next video. Bye-bye!